What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. Today's video topic, how to develop a game in Jiu-Jitsu. This is something that I know a lot of people struggle with. I get questions all the time. What's the best game for me? This is particularly for people that are starting off in Jiu-Jitsu, but it could be for anybody. If you're looking to figure out, okay, what's my game in a specific position? So I get this question all the time. What's the best game for me, for my body type, for this and for that? And the reality is that for the most part, it's very difficult to say, based on your body type, you should play specifically this game, okay? Because Jiu-Jitsu is individual person to person, based on your body type, based on your athleticism, based on your background, based on your personality. You're going to have different game and different styles. Ultimately, what I think that the goal should be is for you to be well-rounded. This, in my opinion, is the goal when you're looking to develop your skills, making yourself a well-rounded person. If you were starting from when you're a complete beginner, you've never done Jiu-Jitsu before, you typically are going to want to start building a solid defensive foundation to where you focus purely on your defense and your ability to escape from bottom pins and develop a good bottom game in general, because that's what's most different about Jiu-Jitsu compared to any other sport or martial art, is the fact that you can play off of your back. It's not necessarily a bad thing depending on what situation you're in, but for the most part it's oftentimes a good thing to be in bottom position in Jiu-Jitsu, okay, because there's a ton of offense that you can generate from there. You want to be able to escape from bad positions, and you want to be able to develop a good habit and have pride in not having your guard pass and not being able to be held for long periods of time in bottom pins. So if you're starting from completely the ground up, that's what I would suggest you start with first. But you want to be well-rounded, and well-rounded means having good defense and good offense. You have to think about defense, but you also have to think about offense. If you don't have a good defensive foundation, it's going to be difficult for you to have a good offensive game. So when most people think about games, they think about offense. But ultimately, what gives you the ability to actually put out offense on people is having a solid defense. That's going to give you confidence to be able to go forward and take risks that are necessary for you to have a good offense. So when we think about defense, you have to think about, in general, escapes from both pins and submissions. And you also want to think about guard retention. I don't want you to think about just developing a specific game, but I want you to think about how to develop a well-rounded game, okay? And that's the philosophy that I like to take. That's the philosophy that all of my teammates take, and all the best athletes, or the ones that I look up to the most, take, is they have a well-rounded game. So defensively, I would say that focusing on escapes from pins and submissions and focusing on guard retention, having pride in the ability that, okay, if I'm in bottom position, I feel very confident that people cannot get past my legs. And in the case that they do, I already have a good defensive foundation where I can get out if they do, okay? And that goes for submissions as well. In terms of offense, you got to think about a bunch of different factors. When it comes to offense, there's a lot of different things that are involved. You have to think about offense from guard, which comes down to reversals or sweeps and submissions, and your ability to transition between two, going into sweeps, going to submissions from bottom position. And this is where your game kind of comes in. Based around your body type, based around your skill level, based around a variety of different factors, you are going to find that as you train, as you learn techniques, you are going to favor some more than others. And based around what you favor the most, you're going to generally be able to develop little systems around that. Say, for example, you are somebody who is more of a shorter, stockier body type, okay? You don't have a ton of flexibility, but you're more of a robust fire hydrant type guy. Typically, for example, if we're talking about guard, a good bottom game for people like that in a lot of cases would be half guard. Underhooks, deep half guard, things of that nature. Doesn't require a ton of flexibility. It's very good for people of that nature that lack maybe in lengths, but have good strength, good robustness in their body type. You could name a bunch of different body types and say, okay, this game might be better for this person, but it's not necessarily always the case, okay? Because I know a lot of short, stocky people that have very good dynamic open guards. It really just depends on you. Ultimately, it's going to depend on your personality, your body type, all the attributes that you have and what you favor. That's going to decide what you choose from these broader positions, right? Guard. Just guard in general is a very broad topic. It's not always the case. Some people, can only play one or two different types of guard. But generally speaking, as you go through your progression and as you start to increase in skill level, go against better opponents, and you progress through mastering the sport, you want to take the well-roundedness into these topics as well. Okay, so you want to be a well-rounded guard player. You want to be able to hit submissions from bottom. You want to be able to reverse people from bottom position, and you want to be able to play dynamically between different guards. In time, you find a couple of different guard positions that you favor the most, and you can play them interchangeably, and that's generally an approach that I would recommend taking. Okay, when you talk about offense, you have to also think about passing. Okay, so getting past somebody's legs and actually holding them down and being able to establish pins. You got to be able to think about standing position, whether that's taking people down or whether there's a skill involved in guard pulling into, not just pulling and sitting the guard, but guard pulling into more advantageous positions. So you can develop a whole game in standing position based around guard pulling. Okay. Or even attacking submissions from standing positions. You can go deep into it. You want to think about also submissions. And when it comes down to submissions, you have submissions from tons of different positions. Pins, you have somebody on mount, you have somebody in the back, whatever the pin is, side control, being able to submit them from pins. Okay? You want to submit people in transition. Maybe somebody's, shooting in on a double leg to you. You defend the double leg and you go into a guillotine or whatever the case is. You're transitioning from one position to another, and during that transition, you see an opportunity to go in and put in a submission. This is also part of developing a well-rounded submission game. Okay, so you have to think about games, not so broad where it's like, okay, this is my game and I only do this, but I like to think about it in sections. Okay, this is my game from guard, this is my game from top, this is my game from standing, this is my submission game from side control, mount, this is the submissions I like to hit from space or from transitions. You have to think about jiu-jitsu in terms of parts. Okay, it's very difficult to say, how do I choose a game? You have to think about the different parts of jiu-jitsu and how you can choose positions, techniques, and systems based around your body type and your attributes, your physical attributes that are going to favor you best. And in time, in practicing positions, as you start getting better at jiu-jitsu, you are going to find that there are positions that you're going to favor above others, and you're going to be able to, in time, just develop systems around that. You learn how to chain techniques with each other. Say you're playing half guard, you learn how to chain, sweeps with back takes or whatever the case is. And so when it comes down to developing a good game in jiu-jitsu, in my opinion, you want to focus, number one, on how to be well-rounded. In order to be a well-rounded athlete, you have to think about both defense and offense. When most people think about developing a game, they only think about offense. What's the best way for me to win in jiu-jitsu? You're not going to have good offense without good defense. It's just one of those things that you're going to be hesitant to play an offensive game when you don't have good defense. However, if you want to develop a well-rounded offensive game that checks off all these different categories of jiu-jitsu, you're going to want to start off by developing a good defensive foundation. If you don't have a good defensive foundation, you're going to be one of those guys that's like, okay, I only play half guard, and the only reason why I go to half guard is because I know that if I try any other move, I'm going to get caught in a shitty position. I'm never going to be able to get out, and I'm going to get submitted. And that's really ultimately what happens. So it all comes down to your ability and your desire to be a well-rounded practitioner. Think about jiu-jitsu in these subsections. When it comes down to offense, you want to have offense from all the different positions in jiu-jitsu. And in time, you start to develop a game based around these sections. And so those areas are going to generally be guard, passing, standing position, and submissions. Okay, and you can break down submissions, and you can break down guard, and you can break down passing, and you can break down standing into even more and more subsections. You can go as deep with it as you want, but generally speaking, it's going to be very difficult to be good at a variety of different moves. Okay, so you want to be competent in all these positions, and you want to find a couple of techniques from all these positions that will ultimately be your game from these positions, but the techniques that work best for you, that you can combine best with each other, and that way you develop a more well-rounded game. You feel competent from all different positions in jiu-jitsu, and you feel that regardless of whatever area that you're in the sport, you are going to have a specific game. You're going to understand what it is that you do best from those positions. You have a wide array of knowledge, but ultimately you choose the skill set that works best for you. And regardless of where you are in a match, in a round, you're going to feel comfortable. Okay, and that's ultimately what I believe is the best way to develop a game in jiu-jitsu, is to focus on the most important thing would be being a well-rounded athlete and taking all these different elements of the sport and adding what works best for you and each one of those into your arsenal as a jiu-jitsu practitioner.